Previously on Forever Chemicals.
We learned how regulations are now playing a bigger role in where and how PFAS is used within our products, and how difficult it is to get impactful regulation passed.
If I start with what is PFAS? PFAS is a very big group of fluoroorganic chemicals and polymers. They have what we call extraordinary properties.
PFAS are industrial chemicals, and the carbon-fluorine bond is perhaps the strongest in the periodic table. It takes the energy of lightning to break it.
PFAS are known as forever chemicals.
The chemical industry knew that PFAS could be harmful.
So it's used in places that folks don't think. It's in every pizza box that you've gotten a pizza in. It's in your coffee cup at your favorite coffee joint around the corner. It's in cosmetics. It's everywhere.
PFAS chemicals are wreaking havoc on our health and environment.
It's a really serious issue.
So there's health impacts and there are environmental impacts.
So many of them have been found to last essentially on geologic time.
Difficult to remove, difficult to filter, and then once removed and filtered, difficult to dispose of. They have been found to bioaccumulate in people and animals and have been found in almost every living creature on Earth.
We need to eliminate our apparent appetite for using PFAS.
The environmental impacts are pretty potent. Many of us refer to these as forever chemicals.
If you're on an oil rig and you need to stay dry, still the highest performance is going to be PFAS. And yes, contamination is a huge issue. We talk about oil repellency, and still the only way you're going to get that is with a PFAS. So there are some applications that likely either will go away very slowly or never at all. But for the general consumer and for the general outdoor market, it is got to go and will. And it is clear that it is. And this isn't just PFAS. It's when do you use chemistry to actually, because it's needed, not because you can. It's going to cause brands to really be more, hopefully, intentional and thoughtful on the use of chemistry.
As more regulations come into play, many outdoor brands have moved the needle and promised to phase PFAS out of their products and apparel by 2025. While this is great news, what's curious as a consumer is that alternative chemistry has existed for quite some time. Brands like Nikwax and PFAS never needed to use harmful chemicals to achieve waterproof capabilities. And now, Nikwax is one brand leading the change with industry-wide innovations with cleaner chemistry. In later episodes, we'll explore how both European and US brands have moved to phase out PFAS in their product lines. But before we get to that, it's worth noting that there have always been alternatives.
I'm Brian Davidson. I'm president of Nikwax North America and CEO of Nikwax Global. So kind of oversee the entire brand business for the company. Based in Seattle, Washington, have been with the company for about 8 years and love every minute of it. A great brand, a company that's got real ethos and reasons why it does things. We consider ourselves a small little aftercare company in the scheme of things, but I think we're well known for our early adoption of a lot of what are the current sustainability kind of practices. So we make a line of aftercare products. Has been our primary business, where even with previous and current DWR treatments on fabrics, they come off over time. And so at some point, people think I need a new jacket, but honestly, they can just reapply some new DWR. And so that's really been our business, is providing products that you can easily do that in the home. You can do it safely because of our chemistries and really extend the life of gear, get high performance out of it, make it last longer, keep it out of landfills, all the kind of things that go along with it that are great. And so that's been our passion project for the last 45 years. And then recently, in the last few years, we really looked at the journey that the whole industry was on about being PFAS free. And we said, we do this already, and we've got a 45-year head start on it. I think we can do some things to help the entire industry beyond our aftercare product line, which has led us into industrially applied DWR coatings that are PFAS free. Nick Brown of Nikwax is the original founder and owner. Started in 1977, and he was not a trained chemist or businessman, but he had really an incredible thirst for information and was very curious. He was a walker, as they say in the UK, which means you're out hiking on trails and things like that here in the US. But he wanted to find a better solution for waterproofing his leather boots. He didn't like kind of some of the greasy, waxy things that were around at the time. Started doing his research very early on, self-discovered, that what these PFAS chemicals were being used, how persistent they were and damaging to the environment and humans, and just made a decision right there on the spot that he was going to do it a different way. And that's the curiosity that drove him so much. And so he constantly looked for different ways that were still effective, but safer or more convenient, whatever it was. So it was a very conscious decision. We've kind of been talking about it, for quite a while, and it's great to see the entire industry really now embracing it as a cause that we want to change how those chemicals have been used in the supply chain. We've been doing it a while and have learned a lot. On some of our formulations, we're on like the 150th or 170th version of it. So we have really continued to be inquisitive and understand how to make it perform better, sometimes by trying to continue to use cleaner chemistries even ourselves and just try to make it perform better. And then we have really worked on making it work on a variety of materials. So, I can take a cotton t-shirt and I can wash it and make it beat up water like it's a rain jacket. The cotton is going to fight that waterproof performance of it and eventually will win. So that's not something I recommend everyone try to make everything out there cotton waterproof. But when you get into synthetics and things like that, you can really improve the performance and extend the life, do it really safely, do it at home. And so we just learned how to do it, whether it's a fleece jacket or cotton or synthetics or whatever it is. One of the big challenges out there is most DWR coatings, these PFAS coatings, are brittle. And so when you rub up against things, they're kind of breaking down and flaking off, if you will. And eventually that's when you notice your jacket starts to get wet. Instead of beating up water, you've rubbed some of the coating off, the treatment. And so we've learned how to do that with materials that stretch. So a lot of materials are 4-way stretch or soft shell materials, which inherently were harder to waterproof. So again, through just curiosity and determination, we were able to make our treatments more elastic in some situations. So they would stay on those fabrics longer. Other ones, a shiny, slick rain jacket, if you will, you have to work to make that apply differently. And so everyone's on that same journey. We just maybe, had a few more years at it than others.
If you're not using PFAS that you never have, then how does it actually waterproof gear?
What is the secret sauce? Right?
Yeah.
I can't give you all the details there. Broadly, it's kind of an elastomer that is washed into the fabric. So one of the questions everybody wants to know about, in addition to waterproofness, is breathability. And if you put a coating or something where you're actually covering the outer surface, you might get waterproof performance out of something, but you probably will contain the moisture that's inside trying to get out, which also creates discomfort. It can shorten the life of a jacket because of the amount of moisture that kind of is in it regularly. And so it's important that you allow that jacket to breathe and dry out completely and everything. And so we just waterproof the individual fibers in a jacket, and we leave all the spaces in between open. We don't affect any membranes or things like that have such tiny, tiny openings. They only let, evaporated water leave, but they don't let a water droplet enter. And so they're completely safe with our products because we're only attaching or absorbing into fabric. If it's a plastic or a metal or some other material on the garment, it just washes off of it and can't absorb into it. And so we get a really good performance out of that because we wash right into the fabric. We have constantly evolved the product line to try to perform better and challenge ourselves, if you will. And many of our products have some dual purpose as well. So one of the recent things we've worked on and brought to market is a cleaning and waterproofing product for outdoor tents and gear and backpacks. These things we also carry out in the outdoors, but need their own little treatments and whatnot to perform best. And so UV sunlight is really damaging to those kind of materials. A lot of base camps at high altitude, the tent material ends up almost shredding over time and deteriorating because of such high elevation UV damage. And so that very thin material that tents are made out of is fantastic, but you want to protect it. And so we have been able to add UV protection into our washing and our waterproofing products for tents, which basically will double the life of the fabric. And so again, you'll get great performance out of it, but you'll make it last longer. And again, keep it out of landfills or keep it out of, needing to repurpose. So we're all about kind of like everybody else, recycle, reuse. How do we repurpose as much as we can? So we're all about trying to extend the life of the gear. And so, yeah, we do that. We have some odor protectant or odor fighting elements to some of our product line. And so more a little on some of the fitness and high activity products that when you wear them after a while, they collect an odor that's hard to get rid of, let's say. Whenever I talk about that product with somebody, everybody goes, oh yeah, I have some of that, right? They shake their heads. And so it's quite difficult. Household detergent doesn't really get rid of it. And so you end up maybe not wanting to wear that or buy a new one, whatever it might be. And so, yeah, we found some chemistries that are really clean and simple, but they get rid of that bacteria, keep that odor from lasting. So again, constantly looking at what's happening in fabrics, kind of what are the challenges out there that are happening in the industry, whether it's down or synthetics or cottons or whatever it is, and keep trying to push forward with new chemistry.
Although Nikwax started as an aftercare product for consumers, with the rise of PFAS regulation, as Brian mentioned, they had the chemistry dialed and began to share it with the industry as a whole to help push cleaner chemistry to the forefront of industry production.
Aftercare, the packaging, the method of application, everything was designed around a consumer experience. You could put it in your home washing machine or hand wash it if you wanted to. But really simply, get the fabric really clean with one of our cleaners and then wash in our waterproofer. And so with the industrial materials, we started one with actual down material, feathers, goose or duck down, working with that product. And we started waterproofing that. So you could take that product, and we did it in large industrial facilities. And then you could put that into sleeping bags or you could put that into down jackets. And then if you were out in the rain, caught between here and there while you're wearing your down jacket, it didn't kind of droop and get really heavy and absorb. It would beat up water and whatnot. And so that industrial fabric or material has really done well and kind of helped us spark our curiosity for how we can do more industrial products. And so as the whole industry was searching for PFAS-free DWR treatments, we weren't hearing great results like, yeah, they're out there, but they're not as durable as we want them to be or whatever it might be. And so we thought, we can do this. We know we do it all day, across the country in people's homes. So we really just challenged ourselves to what the method of application is. How is it done at a textile mill in large bulk quantities? And then really worked with our formulations. I've been to Shanghai and other places many times in the process. And we really, we think discovered a way to really apply it in large bulk methodology that's quite simple to do, doesn't take anything extravagant. It's actually easier than how the past PFAS-based DWRs were applied, but you get the same performance. And so that's been one of our pride moments, if you will, is that you can get the same performance as the industry's been used to with PFAS-based DWRs. You can get that same level of performance with PFAS-free Nikwax products. And the testing is the same. There's some third-party laboratories in the industry has created these norms on how you rate waterproof performance. There's an initial spray test, a certain volume of water put on at a 45-degree angle, and then you inspect the garment and see, or the fabric, and see if any water absorbed. And you can get as high a score as 100, which means 0 water or something less than that. And then there's a durability test, which is if I wash it 20 times, can it still at least maintain 80% of its original waterproof performance? We've met those standards as well as some others and shown that you can do it with PFAS-free chemistry, the same performance levels as PFAS-based chemistry. And so that's been really encouraging and I think, eye-opening for everybody. But I would add on, eventually, most things need to be replenished, just like our cars need their oils changed or whatever it is. I think that's a little bit of the consumer journey. It's not going to be a burden and it's not going to have to be a big advertised point, but I will say most people that are in the outdoors already know about Nikwax and know you can take care of your garment. And so telling them that that's a good way to extend and maintain your PFAS-free treatments is not going to be a burden or some big, long journey. And so having both an industrial product and then a home application product already 45 years in the making is really quite a streamlined path, we think, for a lot of brands and people in the industry to implement this kind of transition and hopefully not worry that the customer is going to have, some kind of change in experience or whatnot. And so we're excited about that and have had lots and lots of great conversations with brands around the industry about what we do and how we're doing it and how potentially we could work together as they implement these new kind of PFAS-free methods.
Nikwax has a similar performance ability to that of PFAS in terms of waterproofing. But what about other things like oil?
The ban in California and other states is going to cause significant investments in the industry into bending the laws of physics. Because in most cases, the biggest contamination problem with a non-fluorinated durable water repellency is oil. That's your skin oil, that's your sunscreen, that's your ketchup you spilled from your hot dog on the chairlift. It's the chairlift grease dripping onto you. It's your dog rubbing against your, wet rain pants. It's all of it, cosmetics. It's all of those things. So two things are going to happen. One is your jacket isn't going to work as well. And we're going to need to work through that in terms of consumer education as to why. And we're going to have to figure out a solution to make an oleophobic treatment that is non-fluorinated. That is not something that we've really uncovered yet. And it is kind of the laws of physics in some senses of the way and the properties that you get water to beat up and resist oil. Oil immediately makes that water want to spread. So I think that's a huge piece of it. I think the second part is potentially reevaluating how we evaluate waterproofness. One of the biggest struggles that I'm struggling with right now here with outdoor research with this problem is that the test method used by the industry to evaluate the spray rating or DWR performance of a fabric is done in a lab in a controlled setting with new garments with no contamination. So you hear brands spout off statistics like 80-20, 80% effective after 20 washings. You can achieve that in many cases with a non-fluorinated DWR in a lab setting and say, great, supplier adhered to our brand minimum on DWR performance. But the reality is you get a garment made in that and you literally on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. wipe your forehead, rub those fingers down the side of that jacket, spray it with a spray bottle. You can see all 4 fingers very clearly through that in an instant. It's that fast. So in most cases, the test method used is not indicative of the real world performance. That's a disservice to the end users. We need to solve that problem, and that's going to take industry level work. Then additionally, how do we care and feed? I love that joke. How you care and properly feed your new jacket. So Outdoor Research's solution is a new partnership we've publicly announced with Nikwax, the leader of weatherproofing and retreatment and cleaning products for the outdoor industry. And our approach with a new awesome garment coming out is to focus on that, to say, you're going to wash and dry your jacket more to recharge and get that DWR working again. Let's focus on building the best version of jacket that works with that treatment, works with that process, works with that care and feeding, instead of chasing something that we can't yet solve for, which is this new type of durable water repellency.
Nikwax is a long-standing aftercare brand dedicated to sharing innovations in clean chemistry with the rest of the industry. Newer brands like PACA also made the conscious decision when designing more technical apparel to leave PFAS out of their product line.
My name is Chris Cody. I'm the founder and CEO of PACA, an alpaca outdoor apparel company working to change the industry. It just comes down to being a choosable alternative for brands for it to really be taken up, because one brand can do it for sure, but it does require hundreds working to the same North Star. I say this a lot for industry change. Like, one brand can't really change the whole game, but when we all are sharing a North Star, like, this PFAS thing with the legislation or a UN goal, right? Then if we have alignment, anything's possible, given what we've created in the wrong direction over the past 50 years. So the opposite is clearly true. We have developed an insulation pack-a-fill that, brands are asking for and to use. That's a natural replacement for the synthetics currently out on the market that are really the majority of the outdoor industry, that and down, which requires killing geese. And so we're the fill, trying to change the fill of those jackets, and that has had to perform better than the current synthetic alternatives for companies to take it seriously or desire it. It comes down to it functioning better. Otherwise, why would you can't guilt trip people, consumers, into making a decision. Oh, this is environmentally better. It's like, that's not going to make them choose that over this one on the shelf if it's not better. So I encourage, like, really function needs to be there for industry change to happen. I mean, it's interesting how recent of a change this is. Like, even Patagonia, behemoth in sustainability, had C6 in their jackets up until 3 years ago on their pro shells. And so, it's been a big learning lesson for the whole industry. We've never made any clothing that includes PFAS. We're making clothing from nature that's healthy for you. And so just for me as like the founder, I don't want to ever make anything toxic. That sounds like a terrible thing to do. The pull is the function of, okay, if we're saying waterproof, we still have to achieve that.
Despite the fact that Nikwax has existed for around 45 years, most brands chose functionality over environmental or human health concerns. It is true that the harms were hidden from the public for decades. However, most brands, especially in the US, made the conscious decision to continue to use PFAS despite what the science was telling them.
It was because they couldn't find something that would repel or be effective after multiple washes. I mean, with that knowledge, the industry was still demanding what's called like 90 after 10 or 80 after 20 standards for spray rating, like a 90% of the spray rating after 10 washes or 80% after 20 washes. And so because of that, there were no C0s that could ever get there. And it had to be trial and error developed. And so for years, people resisted going to C0, even if they knew it was carcinogenic, and they chose function. Really what happened is, seems like from what I've learned, is then the EU really started pushing, and a lot of companies, Scandinavia and Germany, said they weren't going to use any fluorocarbons. Then it's just been a journey down from like C8 to C6 to C4 to finally C0.
Hearing from brands like Nikwax and PACA brings to light choices that producers have to make when deciding to introduce a product to the market, and the responsibility the industry should take when dealing with hazardous chemicals like PFAS.
One of the challenges, though, is how do we know the alternatives are actually truly safer for not only consumers, but for communities, workers, and the larger environment? And that's why we are calling on the industry to do better. So as companies substitute PFAS chemistry with other materials or other chemicals, they need to comprehensively evaluate the environmental health hazards of replacements to ensure we're not playing the whack-a-mole game, that we're not going from one bad actor chemical to another. And we've seen this with PFAS, right? 10 years ago, many big brands in the outdoor industry and apparel industry, largely in response to advocacy from Greenpeace, they were like, okay, we'll get away from the long chain PFAS. But unfortunately, many of those companies substituted the long chain PFAS with short chain PFAS. And now they have to substitute them again, which is costly. Really the better solution is to ensure that when you're moving away from one bad actor chemical, that you're actually truly substituting it for a safer alternative. One of the things about the policy that we enacted in Washington state that is really interesting and important is the state of Washington has the authority to regulate or ban a chemical if they can show that there are viable, safer alternatives that are available. And that's a model that we'd like to see replicated, not only in other states and governments, but also we think that that's an approach that businesses need to pursue as well. There are a lot of great tools that are out there, like Green Screen and Chem Forward, that can help companies evaluate whether or not the alternatives to PFAS are truly safe. There are some third-party standards that are out there that are beginning to restrict PFAS as a class, but they don't all necessarily ensure that the alternatives are actually truly safer for people or planet. So businesses really need to step up, roll their sleeves up, and as they're evaluating and considering alternatives, they should really be asking hard questions and looking very closely about the safety of the alternatives that they're considering. And it's the right thing to do not only for our health and environment, but they don't want to be stuck 5-10 years down the road and then having to find another alternative when they realize that the substitute is also problematic. We know that there are some problematic alternatives that are out there, such as siloxanes. It's another class of chemicals that also pose environmental and public health hazards. So that's an example of class of chemicals that we recommend brands and manufacturers steer clear of. And I think, if anything, that's one of my most important messages that I have for regulators in the business community. Yes, we need to get away from PFAS, but also we need to ensure the substitutes are safe.
In the next episode, we get an inside look into how many European brands took matters into their own hands regarding phasing PFAS out of their production. We'll hear from a variety of companies about the process they took to acknowledge the problem with PFAS and how they effectively removed it from their product lines. If you want to learn more about what PFAS are, where they're found, the proven health effects, how you can limit your exposure, up-to-date news on PFAS, and how to get involved in PFAS regulatory efforts, visit toxicfreefuture.org, foodandwaterwatch.org, or pfascentral.org. SnapLink Consulting provided expert fact-checking and guidance for the creation of this podcast. SnapLink Consulting provides corporate sustainability strategies and ESG support across a broad range of industries, including apparel, footwear, home furnishings, software, cosmetics, professional services, and more. Head to snaplinkconsulting.com to learn more and contact the experts to guide you through complex topics like CSRD, PFAS, greenhouse gas assessments, SBTI, CDP, EcoVadis, B Corp, and many more compliance and certification frameworks. Forever Chemicals is a Black-Footed Ferret production. All the source material for this episode can be found in the show notes or at theoutdoorminimalist.com/foreverchemicals. As an independent podcast, we rely on listener support as our primary avenue for funding. If you like this show and our other content, consider donating to our GoFundMe. The link is in the show notes.